This is Ecotricity's ecoTEC roundup show from Aptera's first and only climate-positive certified renewable electricity provider. We only source from wind, hydro and solar, and we are the leading supplier of electricity to EVs in Aptera. Search today at ecotricity.co.nz. Welcome back to another roundup of news in the world of clean cars and green energy. Thanks for joining me. We start today's show with some truly amazing news from the Kiwi government, at least if you are an EV fan, which I think you probably are. It confirmed this week that more than 100,000 rebates have been sent out since it introduced its EV rebate programme in 2021, which means that the country will reduce its total emissions 230% more than it originally estimated it would by 2025. To keep the programme running, the government announced some important changes. While it's reducing the rebate for new EVs to 7,000 Kiwi dollars per car, it's increasing the available rebates on used imported EVs, which is great for fans of Nissan Leafs and other cars coming in from Japan. To pay for this all, the government is also increasing the fees on high-emission vehicles to a maximum of 6,900 Kiwi dollars, while also dropping the threshold for what's considered a high-emission vehicle. The threshold used to be 192 grams of CO2 per kilometre, but it's now going to be 150 grams of CO2 per kilometre. Great! The good news keeps coming next with details about the next generation Mini Cooper 3-door electric, a car that used BMW's 5th generation EV drivetrain tech. At the middle of the week, BMW confirmed official specifications for its next generation Mini, complete with a choice of 2 different motors. First up, the Mini Cooper E, which will come with a 135 kilowatt front-wheel drivetrain and 40.7 kilowatt-hour battery pack. That's pretty close in specs to the outgoing Mini Cooper SE, but the new Mini Cooper SE gets a boost in motor and battery pack, offering 160 kilowatts and 54.2 kilowatt-hours of storage. That says Mini will give between 300 and 400 kilometres, 186 to 248 miles. Official pricing remains a mystery at this time. Aptera published several important updates this week as it works to bring its solar-electric car of the same name to market. The first, a short 1-minute YouTube video, teased progress being made in Modena, Italy, where the first production die moulds that will produce body panels for each Aptera EV are being made. The second video, an hour-long webinar with company co-founders Steve Fambro and Chris Anthony, dove a lot deeper, showing some significant progress being made on several different parts of the production intent process. Tools have been designed to fabricate parts, with wastage throughout the process being kept to an impressive minimum. But while the live stream was one of optimism, complete with external funding starting to trickle in, as well as promises of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, the firm says it still needs to raise additional funding to reach full-scale production. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety is one of North America's most trusted crash test organizations, and its coveted Top Safety Pick Plus award is quite the accolade. This week, Rivian's R1S electric SUV joined its sibling, the R1T, in achieving that lofty goal after performing well in all but one area of its IIHS crash tests. While plenty of small and mid-sized vehicles manage the IIHS award, it's traditionally been far harder for full-size pickup trucks and SUVs to perform well enough in crash tests to earn it, and the R1S is, at the moment, the only 2023 model year full-size SUV to win it. While the R1S achieved good ratings in most of the categories, it scored adequate in its moderate overlap front test, advanced in its front crash prevention vehicle to pedestrian night tests, and poor in its seatbelt reminder tests. This week, Ford became the latest automaker to publish its Q1 earnings, and for the first time, it broke down the income from its various units, meaning we got to see more details about its EV division, Ford Model E. While Ford's overall position as a company saw it post a net income of $1.8 billion for the first quarter, much better than the sizable losses it posted last year, Ford's Model E arm was the only part of the Ford business to lose money, posting a loss of $722 million, more than double the losses it sustained this time last year. Some of that, Ford said, was down to higher costs associated with engineering, scheduling downtime at its Mustang Mach-E production facility in order to increase production capacity, and increased spending on its EV expansion. Ford says it hopes to approach break-even point on its current generation EVs later this year. If you're someone who regularly uses non-Tesla charging infrastructure, you'll know that uptime and reliability are big issues on most networks, with some networks performing worse than others. One network that consistently comes under criticism of late is Electrify America, with both new and old charging stations showing some significant issues that can dramatically impact EV road tripping. This week, Robert Barossa, who is about to become the CEO later this year, a promotion from VP of Technology, just took a week-long road trip across the US, stopping at 28 Electrify America sites to experience charging firsthand. The resulting video shows some days were problem-free, but others were definitely not, with broken stations and issues with charging speed. Admitting on camera that there are still issues EA needs to fix, he called the trip enlightening. We've been covering embattled Ohio automaker Lordstown Motors for a long time on this channel, expressing some significant concerns we've had about the way it's been operating. This week, our concerns were confirmed when it announced that the company was close to bankruptcy after its manufacturing partner Foxconn began to renege on a deal that Lordstown said would have given it $47 million of additional funding. It left Foxconn threatening to withhold all future funding and the partnership close to tatters, and by the end of the week, Lordstown made filings with the SEC that basically says it expects to shut down its Lordstown production line unless it can get more money from someone. With just 40 endurance pickups built and far fewer sold, this is a truck we don't ever see reaching mass market production. Press F to pay your respects. After quietly removing it from its website a while ago, Tesla has reintroduced the Tesla Model 3 long range for sale in the US, but its appearance brings some mysteries with it too. First up, there are some changes to the range quoted on Tesla's online configuration page. Previously listed as offering 358 miles of range, the model now being offered for sale as the Model 3 long range quotes a range of 325 plus miles, while its sticker price includes not the full $7,500 federal EV tax credit, but only $3,750. This suggests, as some have surmised, that this new long-range variant uses Chinese-made LFP cells rather than US-manufactured ones. Yet, a note stating that those in cold climates should pick a long-range or performance Model 3 to improve winter performance suggests that these may not be the same cells that are currently found in the rear-wheel drive entry-level Model 3. When Ford unveiled the e-Transit a few years ago, we were excited to see a commercial van with an all-electric drivetrain, but frankly we were disappointed with the van's paltry range. That's because, as launched, the Ford e-Transit had a pretty small 68 kWh battery pack, which offered an EPA-approved 126 miles or 202 kilometres of range per charge. Next week, however, that's about to change, with Ford expected to announce an official long-range version of the e-Transit with a larger battery pack offering up to 186 miles or 299 kilometres of range per charge. As reported by Electrify this week, it's also expected to get a more powerful 19.2 kilowatt onboard charger, which would allow it to use Ford's Charge Station Pro to charge up overnight. Fleet owners and van life fans rejoice. It is no secret that America has a massive gun problem, with multiple mass shootings occurring just this week. And while the majority of Americans now support major gun reform, politicians, aided by powerful lobbyists, just aren't getting the message. This week, gun control entered into the EV world when an altercation at a supercharger site in Colorado ended in one Tesla owner putting a gun on another and shooting them dead. Local police claim the argument was over a charging station, while other reporting suggests all stalls were occupied at the time of the incident. An ongoing investigation is occurring, and our deepest sympathies go out to the families of those involved. It goes without saying that as more and more EVs hit the roads and our charging infrastructure becomes increasingly crowded, kindness and patience are what we should be using with each other, not firearms. Before we get to the last two stories, I have a quick question for you. Are you in the market for a new electric car? Because if you are, and you are in Aptera, you should totally check out our very own buyer's guide at ecotricity.co.nz. It is packed with all the information you need to pick a car that's right for you and includes plenty of details about incentives you can get, charging providers you can use, and of course, how to get climate positive energy at home. So follow the link below and start that journey today. While this channel focuses on the transition towards more sustainable, greener and more equitable transportation, it's important to note that the transition towards zero carbon involves more than just transport. Which is why we're super excited when we hear about news stories like this next one from the state of New York, which has become the first state in the US to ban the use of natural gas and other fossil fuels in most new builds across the state. It's all part of a $229 billion state budget that will effectively require all electric heating and cooking in all new buildings shorter than 7 stories in height by 2026, with taller buildings given 3 more years to come into compliance. While there will be exemptions for commercial and industrial buildings, modern heat pumps and inductive cooktops are by far more energy efficient to use. And finally, pretty much every car enthusiast I know dreams of finding the ultimate barn find, a car that's been stored and forgotten about for decades, often in as-new condition with very few miles on the clock. But this week we heard of a strange all-electric barn find that really gets me excited. As announced midweek by Tesla specialist Gruber Motors, it turns out that back in 2010, a Chinese importer ordered 3 Tesla Roadsters, 1 standard and 2 sport, and then shipped them to China. But rather than sell them on to customers, the cars have sat unloved and forgotten in shipping containers at the port for more than a decade, just as they left the factory. Gruber Motors is arranging the repatriation of the cars to the US and is accepting bids from interested buyers willing to purchase all 3. Right now, expectations are that the trio will fetch upward of $1 million, which is a lot considering that the batteries might be dead. But as far as I'm concerned, Tesla Roadsters are the original and best Teslas there are. Period. And on that note, we are done for the day. Before I go though, do make sure you've hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on the latest in EV news from this channel. And if you haven't switched yet, it is time to switch to Aptera's only and first climate positive certified renewable electricity provider. It is super easy to make that switch, and in doing so you'll help the nation wean itself off dirty energy and onto clean green power that will keep the land beautiful for generations to come. I will be back next week with our usual roundup show, and of course the channel will be back with more awesome content very soon, as will the lovely Gavin Kiwi EV Shoebridge. He's been driving a 100-plus-year-old electric car this week, and if you haven't seen it, the grin on his face says it all, so go watch it. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Nikki Gordon Bloomfield. Kekite! See you next time.